So today we're making a low carb gingerbread cheesecake bars recipe. It's very similar to my pumpkin spice cheesecake bars or my apple cheesecake bars recipes, where we make a low carb crust and we bake it and then we add the cheesecake layer on top. So we're first gonna make the crust, and it's just with some almond flour, some butter, a bit of sweetener, and I'm using allspice just to give it that sort of spicy flavor to it. And then we're gonna make the filling. So before you start making the crust, you're going to preheat your oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And then we're gonna add 1.5 cups of almond flour to a large bowl. And you're gonna add 1 tablespoon of sweetener. I'm using a granular monk fruit sweetener. And you're going to use 1/2 teaspoon of allspice. So this is just to give it that spicy flavor that gingerbread usually has. Now, if you really want to make it a gingerbread cookie, then you can probably add some ginger and cinnamon and cloves to the crust and make it a gingerbread cookie crust. But I'm gonna add those flavors in the cheesecake filling, so I don't want to overpower it in the crust as well. So just mix the dry ingredients until they're well combined. So this is very similar to all my other cheesecake bars recipes. Making the crust, then make the filling. It's a pretty easy recipe. The only part that might be a little difficult is creaming the cream cheese together, because sometimes I feel like a stand mixer is best, because the cream cheese, if it's not totally softened, like really soft, it's hard to mix. So I use a stand mixer, but if you don't have a stand mixer, I would throw that cream cheese in the microwave for like 15-20 seconds just to make it really soft. That way the mixer will mix easily that cream cheese in the rest of the filling. So there's the crust. Now you gotta add just 1/2 cup of unsalted melted butter that's been cooled. This is gonna hold the crust together. So make sure your oven is preheated at 350. Just gonna mix this together really well and then press it into the 8x8 baking pan that has been greased and lined with parchment paper. So that is mixed. Get your 8x8 baking pan, transfer the crust into there. Don't worry too much about what the crust looks like on top, because it's gonna be covered with the cream cheese layer. So let's go in the oven 350, 12 to 15 minutes. Just watch it. You want to make sure it's cooked. You don't want it burnt. You want it maybe slightly golden. Okay, so we're gonna make the filling for this gingerbread cheesecake bars recipe. So I have 2 softened 8-ounce bricks of cream cheese, and I'm going to add to that my powdered sweetener, and I'm using 1/4 cup of powdered sweetener. So you can use your preferred powdered sweetener. I'm using a monk fruit blend, and so if you don't have powdered, you can always blend it yourself. If you have granular, to turn it into powdered. So along the way, scrape down the sides as we go, and you're just gonna mix this until they're well creamed together, and then we're going to add the rest of the wet ingredients, and then we'll add the dry ingredients later. So start on low, just because you don't want that powder flying everywhere. So it's creamed together really well. By the way, I'm using the paddle attachment only because it's stronger to get through that cream cheese. So I'm going to scrape down the sides right now, and then I'm going to add 1 egg, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and then I'm adding, which is optional, 1/4 teaspoon of molasses. So I'm adding the 1 egg now, And then I'm also going to add the 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. So I'm going to slow it down and add the 1/4 teaspoon of molasses. And then I'm going to go back to high for 30 seconds. So now I'm going to scrape down the sides and remove the paddle attachment and add the whisk attachment for the remainder of the mixing. Just because I want it well mixed with the whisk. So now that we have the whisk attachment, we're going to add 1 tablespoon of ground ginger, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, half a teaspoon of ground cloves, and 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. So mix that for about 2 minutes until well combined on high. Okay, that's been 2 minutes. Now I'm just going to scrape down the sides. I'm going to do another 30 seconds. So at this point, I want you to taste the filling and see if it's sweet enough for you. If not, you can add more sweetener. I often lightly sweeten my recipes just because some people don't really like it too sweet. Maybe you like it a lot sweeter, so you might want to add some sweetener. My oven's beeping. And or it may not be spiced enough for you. You may want more ginger, you may want more cinnamon, cloves. So taste it, see if it's up to your liking. If not, add more. Some of my recipes are heavily spiced, like my gingerbread muffins. This is lightly spiced, so you may want to add more to it. So just test for sweetness, spiciness. Going down for 30 seconds, and then we're transferring it to the cooled crust. Okay, so our crust is nice and cooled. Look how nice and golden brown that is. And so now we're just gonna top it with the filling. And so I'm just gonna transfer all the filling on top. Sometimes I like to do a double layer with just white cream cheese filling and then the gingerbread on top, but today I just mix it all together. And also with the parchment, I did 2 sides to overhang, so that way it'll be easier to pull out after. And obviously you're gonna wait till it's completely cooled before you take it out, otherwise it may fall apart. So layer that filling on top, and then you're gonna throw it into a preheated oven at 350 degrees for 30 minutes or so is usually best for my oven. You just want to make sure it's not really jiggly on top and it's cooked through. So just spread it out evenly to all the corners. That's it. Let's go in the oven, 350 for about 30 minutes. Okay, so the cheesecake squares are out of the oven. They've cooled. So now I'm just gonna cut them into squares, so like 16 squares, and that'll be it. That's it. They turned out really well. They're a little golden around the edges, but that again was just 30 minutes. So I have a cutting board here. I'm just going to plop it out and cut it into 16 squares. I'll show you what it looks like. Just like that. Oh, by the way, put it in the fridge once it's cooled for about 2 hours and then cut into it. It's much easier. That's it. Enjoy.